Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Hasib Akhtar from Ericsson, and my colleague Daging couldn't make it today. He got into some technical problems, but he's definitely going to be there tomorrow in our expanded session, which will happen in this room in Thursday afternoon. But anyway, I'll continue to move forward, and I wanted to acknowledge Shatai, another colleague from AT&T. He had a lot of contribution towards this as well. So basically, we wanted to talk about the edge APIs. So we kind of wanted to go over the 5G architecture and the edge, how it relates to that, and then what is context? What are the contexts that are available? And how do we expose them, and then a little bit on the APIs. So this is basically a chart from what's happening in the 5G RAN and the core network domain. The key messaging here is that because of the evolution of 5G towards virtualization, and also the disaggregation of various components within the RAN and the core, it is contributing towards the edge computing, or it's enabling at least the accessibility of the internet and the data connection at the edge. So you are basically now able to connect much more easily, or provide a service, data services much more easily by adding this disaggregated RAN and the core components. So I'll quickly go over. So what's happening on the RAN part, the baseband unit has been divided into central unit and on the disaggregated RAN side, the distributed unit, the DU, and the central unit. So on the central unit, again, it has been further, I guess, disaggregated into control plane and the user plane. So you have like CU, UP, and the CU, CP. And then if you look into the XRAN architecture, the CU, CP has even further separated into the high and the low plane in terms of separating some of the applications and the lower layer part of the RAN into the CP low. And the DU keeps some of the still the RAN PNF, or the physical network functions, which still is going to be dedicated customized hardware. So that stays in there. And then on the core side, because of the CUPS, control and user plane separation, you have the UPF, or the user plane function, and the rest of them separated as well and disaggregated. And on the top, if you look in the blue side, this is kind of the service-based architecture of the core network. But in any case, what I'm showing here on the red part, that you have some common from the core and the RAN now able to sit into on the edge network. And what we're showing here is the central office sites as an example of edge, but that's not where it necessarily have to be. It could go into the cell site or antenna site as well, right? So that's kind of the key enabler from the 5G that is making edge much more realizable. So what are the contexts then? Because of this disaggregated RAN and the core, what context do you get at the edge? So it actually gives us a lot more information and access to a lot of the data that you previously did not have at the access site. So these were some of these things were actually available at the EPC, or the evolved packet core in the 4G LTE, but with the advent and the disaggregation, you can put them in the edge, and now you have the monetization, user-related information, user location, and the trajectory where the user could be, and also, of course, the application and the service characteristics. What are the bandwidth? What are the latency requirement? The device detail, and especially the mobility pattern, like what are the neighborhood aspects? What are the radio characteristics, what kind of congestion and the load metrics you have, as well as the transport, and then the network topology, like what kind of network you have here. Is it like more user-centric in terms of having towards the cell sites, or is it in the central offices, and things like that. And also, what are the relevant areas here, that if you look at the service and the infrastructure orchestration, and then in the hardware component that runs the workloads, you will basically have those information feed into the DCAE, which is the data collection and analytic engine from the ONAP. I hope you all are familiar with that. So that goes into the edge. So you can crunch all of this information and make it consumable towards the services and the applications, and then you expose them to the applications. So moving forward, so how do we expose the data, and where do we expose the data? So the things that we know now, as of today, that we take the RAN components and the core network components, which is basically the UPF and the CUCP. So that will go to the ONAP, and we can then expose through ONAP some of the APIs or the data. However, there are a lot more functions in the 3GPP view of the core that now are available to you, which I'm kind of showing with the yellow dots, that we don't know where they're going, but those data are available, and that is something that we as an industry have to decide, and we have an opportunity really to influence and make use of this. So 3 more minutes, so let me quickly go over the APIs portion of it. So we did go through the context part. Now the APIs. So there are 4 types of APIs that potentially we can expose at the edge. So on the first one, we have the third-party applications, which are kind of non-real time, around 100 milliseconds plus time. And these are basically the third-party applications that sits inside the ONAP. They have access to the DMAP. So they have access to the bus, and then you can basically be part of the DCAE or connect to the DCAE. You can have access to the policy and all of other ONAP components. So these are basically some sort of microservices that are running inside the ONAP, and then different type of ONAP APIs are actually being exposed to these in order to make this information available. The second one is the near real time, and that's kind of, again, an internal to the operators, but the third parties can play a role here, because now you have access to this CUCP, which sits at the edge, and then these are for different type of optimization that you can use, or even some of the configurations and performance fault management type of applications that can sit here. The key part here, these are really real time. It's in the range of 10 to 100 milliseconds. And then you have the third-party external applications as value-added services, which is basically what we have been looking for all this time. And these are the web scale and IT and the telco applications that can make use of them. And they actually will most likely go through the external API framework that ONAP has. And that's where I'm showing them sitting on top of ONAP here. And then fourthly, there are APIs that would sit on the UEs, and these will also be in the range of 100 milliseconds, near real time, non-real time type of applications. Okay, so that's all I had. So tomorrow I'll have a very competent colleague from AT&T with me, helping me out, Doug Ng. We have whole 40 minutes in the room there at behind or in front of me at 2:40 to 3:20 p.m. And we hope to cover a little bit more in details and hope to address some of your questions and answers. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.